Welcome back. All right, I want to talk about WWE for a little bit today, in part because I saw a comment saying, hey, hockey guys, stay in your lane. Well, you're in luck. I've been watching wrestling as long as I've been watching hockey, so will do. And a comment saying that I had spoke negatively about Chris Statlander and Swerve, which I didn't. Not about the wrestlers themselves. Chris Statlander cutting a rough promo tells me that AEW is not doing what they need to do in order to make sure that their talent are learning and getting better on the microphone. That's an issue. And with Swerve, I was more upset with how his title reign was booked throughout. Really, throughout, I thought he was treated like he wasn't the main event. And when you're the champion, you should be treated like you're the main event. You're the guy, you're the one. And I never got the feeling he was the one. He had a belt. He was used in angles, and then when they were done with him, they turned him halfway through. It didn't make any sense. So I wanted to talk about Raw this week because I wanted to get into why I feel like WWE's product has the superiority right now over AEW, and just get into why people are more likely to want to tune in, because it's the stories. So there were only 4 matches on Raw this week, and that's pretty standard. So LWO, which was Ray and Zelina tagging together, so mixed tag, defeating American Alpha, which is Chad Gable and Ivy Nile. Now, I'm not entirely happy with the booking for Chad Gable right now. I'm not sure where it's headed. And with Ray, who knows how much longer he's going to be around, but it does feel like the LWO has kind of played itself out. I'm not sure what more there is to do for the LWO guys, other than split the group up and see what they can do, right? I don't know if the members of the LWO individually are going to hit the main event scene or mid card scene in WWE, or if they'd be enhancement talent. But I do feel kind of like the LWO's played itself out a little bit. There needs to be some kind of a change there. And American Alpha, I'm not sure what's going to happen there. It doesn't feel like the Creeds are necessarily drawing a lot of heat right now, but you need to start winning matches for fans to really get involved, and they're not winning often enough. Sheamus defeating Braun Breaker by DQ. This is just purely storyline angle to set things up down the road. Braun Breaker is, I think, a wrestler that is never going to be booed. He, to me, feels like the kind that will never be booed because people love the dog barking bit. That goes back to the 90s with Arsenio Hall and all that. He didn't originate it, but man, he made that mainstream, didn't he? There's Cleveland Browns fans right now going, "Hey, we were the dog pound for." We were. Some of us are old enough to remember, but either way, Braun Breaker, much like Rick Steiner back in his day, the dog barking just made it too much fun. It was hard to boo Rick Steiner, even when he was a villain. Even when he was a villain, he could just throw his head to the air and do the bark, and everybody do it with him. So it's not really a heel thing to do, then, is it? The War Raiders defeating Dominic Mysterio and Carlito. The War Raiders are being booked perfectly, and they should win the titles. They've steamrolled their way to this point, and I think that they should have the titles. I always much preferred War Raiders to Viking Experience to Viking Raiders to whatever they were going to be called. War Raiders is their name. That is their tag. I understand that the word war being in there put off Vince McMahon. That's why he wanted them to be Vikings, but it never really worked for me. Bronson Reed defeating Seth Rollins in what was the 85th time these two have met each other over the last month. But you know what? It's fine. It sets up an angle. Bronson Reed working with the Bloodline 2.0, and it sets up Seth Rollins to join Bloodline 1.0. And I will agree with people that there's going to be a turn at Survivor Series, and I will also agree with people that Sami, I think, is going to make the turn. I think Sami Zayn's going to go heel. There's a feeling I have that that's what they're setting up, and that the slow turn is important, and it does feel like it's been exactly that. So yeah, Bronson Reed defeating Seth Rollins. Bronson needs some wins. I don't know what the plan is going forward with Bronson. Are they going to put him in a position where he can challenge for the world title? Are they going to put him in a position where he can win the U.S. title? He's a big wrestler. He's a good wrestler. They need to figure out exactly what the plan is going forward, because once he's done with Seth, I think he needs to either be main event or semi-main event material. Now, they continued the Miz Wyatt 6 storyline, which I love. The Miz does not work as a face. He absolutely works as a heel. And I am excited to see what he and Karrion Kross can do, because that whole Final Testament thing has been mostly a disaster. The Final Testament has, to me anyways, it has not worked. And it's weird because AOP, love the guys. Authors of Pain are fantastic. I don't understand what's fallen apart with that group, but maybe that could be down to booking. Of course, Rhea Ripley returning. Well, we knew she was coming back, and we knew that she would do everything she could to appear at Survivor Series, because that's one of the big shows, and Rhea Bloody Ripley needs to be in it. She is one of my favorite wrestlers. I do keep seeing people posting online about, oh, she looks like a man. She what man? I no, she doesn't. Not at all. She does have the broad shoulders, but she's not. I don't know what people are talking about. So yeah, Rhea Ripley being back is fantastic. I'll even go this far. People talk about like, oh, Liv Morgan's so much better looking. She's not. I wouldn't say of the two of them. They're both very attractive women. Anyway, just so weird to me. And then the Ludwig Kaiser Gunther storyline is interesting to me too, because will they actually turn Gunther, or will this be a time where it looks like there's going to be a face turn and then he goes mega heel? He does something so heelish that you're like, okay, yeah, the turn's not happening. And WWE has done that before. And I'm trying to think of the times that's happened where it looks like somebody might turn and instead they just stay heel. So we kind of qualified as a heel turn, but were they ever really a face? And at some point in time, I'll probably do a video on that too. Some of my favorite heel turns and face turns and all that. New Day. I love how they're writing, and I love how they're writing the breakup. It is so slow, but it's being done right, where you can understand where Xavier Woods is coming from, you can understand his frustration, and you can absolutely understand Kofi Kingston. And now they're doing this 10-year celebration. We know that Xavier is going to turn on Kofi during this 10-year celebration, but the question then becomes, will we see Big E, which is what Simon Miller on What Culture is calling. He thinks that Big E's going to come in and prevent that breakup. I don't think so. I think the right way to go about this is to break them up, have a match between the two of them at WrestleMania, and have matches between now and then to set that up. And then after WrestleMania, after they've gone out there and given us a fantastic 20-minute match, Big E comes out and says, all right, it's done, it's over, and then you reunite New Day as it is. I don't think Big E has to wrestle either, because of course with the neck injury that he's had, he may never wrestle again. Has been the narrative since then. I don't think he has to. I think he could be a good manager. He's very good on the microphone, and if he's willing to do it, I think as a manager for New Day, I think it could work. And then of course Solo Sikoa, kind of screwing over Seth Rollins, and getting Bronson Reed the win means we will see Seth Rollins accept his position with the 1.0 Bloodline group. And again, I think it's Sammy that's going to turn. I don't think it's going to be Seth, because everybody's going to expect Seth to stab Roman in the back, and I don't think he will. I absolutely don't think he will. So looking at the viewers, and I wanted to look at viewer numbers. 1.516 million viewers this week for Raw. 1.502 in hour 1, 1.53 in hour 2. The ratings are up slightly from where they were a year ago, and they're down a bit from where they were 2 years ago. So the switch to 2 hours hasn't really negatively impacted the ratings overall. So getting rid of that third hour, which probably comes back when Netflix takes over in January, but the ratings have been good. And so it'll be interesting to see what the numbers look like when they go to Netflix and if those numbers all get released. SmackDown averaging 1.495 million over the last 10 weeks. That's the average, which is down from where the ratings were when they were on Fox. Going to USA Network, you're going to have fewer eyes on the product. Totally understandable. But $1.495 million, $1.495 million viewers. See, I'm so used to talking about cap hits on the Hockey Channel. They want to get numbers immediately make, and that's money. But and it is money for SmackDown. But that's where the ratings are at. And then you look at NXT. So I'm skipping a line to go down to NXT. NXT this week drew 672,000 viewers. Last week, 631,000 viewers. And they drew that while they were competing with the NBA this week. So those numbers are very, very strong. And this is where Dynamite comes in. Dynamite this past week, and it's Wednesday, so we'll see how tonight's show does, but they had 666,000 viewers last week for the show, Whereas the previous week when they were against NXT, Dynamite drew 523,000 subscribers. So, or subscribers, 523,000 viewers. I get so used to all the YouTube terminology I use on the other channel, and here we are. Like I've ever got close to 523,000 subscribers. I don't know. Maybe someday that'll be what the number is, or I'll just be so senile that that's what I'll think the number is. But that's where we're at. WWE has all these really good storylines, good matches, and not necessarily long matches. And AEW, it does feel like at times they have, and one issue I've had with their product is the 20-minute matches where it's not needed to be 20 minutes. Where it's like, okay, this should be a 5-minute, 7-minute match. It should be setting up a storyline and moving into the next match. And it's a 20-minute, and again, great matches. They throw on really good matches in NXT and AEW, but sometimes they're a bit too long, and that pacing, that can come back to the booking, that can come back to maybe the agents that set that battle up and all that, but it definitely shows that Dynamite has been losing ground and still is. This is a show where we used to measure it as whether or not they got above 1 million, and now 666,000 is considered a pretty good week, even though NXT, which is supposed to be the developmental, 672,000. And the dissolution of Chase U has got everybody's interest because that match with Ridge Holland was easily the high point for the ratings for NXT this week. So that's where we're at with the wrestling landscape right now. I don't have TNA on the board, but like I said in yesterday's video, I do highly recommend TNA's product. I think they're quite good. So this is again, because people are going to say, oh, you stay in your lane. I get it. But I've been watching wrestling just as long as I've been watching hockey. And with wrestling, it's going to be a little different than hockey because there's storylines with wrestling. There's definitely things to follow and things to pay a little more attention to than what I have with in hockey, where it's just you're watching hockey games and here's the teams that are doing well, here's the teams that aren't. In wrestling, the team that's doing well is WWE and the team that isn't is AEW. And even though AEW's future is solid, they've got money coming in, they've got a good TV contract, this is never good to see your ratings dropping and dropping and dropping. Because somebody, somewhere, some executive's going to say, that program's a problem. And it's not yet, but at some point in time, that can happen. And once somebody at the network goes, so that's an issue, you're in trouble. And so that's my concern. And again, for me personally, I think it's great to have two strong companies, since you really want to see as many wrestlers employed as possible. I've mentioned indie wrestling. There are indie wrestlers that come in here to Abbotsford that are with All Star that I think would be perfectly fine in WWE and would do well in AEW. I think there are a lot of pro wrestlers who could be pretty big stars in the wrestling world someday. So I'd like to see multiple companies doing well. I'd love to see TNA get a national contract. I'd like to see New Japan have a national contract on this side of the pond where they get more eyeballs on their product. And AAA, Lucha Wrestling, that is so much fun to watch. Even if you're watching and going, I'm not sure what's happening, but this is bonkers. I love that energy from AAA, and I used to watch that when that was on. There was actually a Spanish-speaking network that we had on my cable, which I don't now, but I used to love watching it. I had no idea what was going on because it was all in Spanish, but I was like, this is fun. This is just, I don't know, and get that guy, and he got that guy, and now there's 8 of them in the ring, and they're making a pyramid out of themselves. Who knows what's going to happen? It's just bonkers. But there you go. Let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. And with the interest that I've seen on this channel, it is, as I always promised, when the views are there and when the numbers are there, I have no problem making content for this channel on the regular too. So thank you guys for that. I will talk to you soon enough.